believe it or not, TIFF 2025 is here, and it is a special year for the Toronto International Film Festival, celebrating its 50th year. I'm going to do my very best to run through 25 films that are probably worth a watch at this year's festival, TIFF 2025. Obviously, it's not going to be a completely comprehensive list. There's over 200 films playing at the festival, and I've watched some of these films through screeners or earlier festivals this year, and some I'm going off of what I know about the director or the cast, the general plot of the film, or some early reactions. So, might as well get rolling, and let's start with number 25. Number 25 is Dust Bunny. Dust Bunny is the feature directorial debut from director Bryan, who is more known for his work in television on shows like Star Trek Discovery, and is actually the creator of the Hannibal TV adaptation. That show starred the wonderful Mads Mikkelsen, and he's back here with Fuller as a mysterious hitman who is hired by his 10-year-old neighbor to kill the monsters under her bed. Dust Bunny is essentially a wicked fairy tale action horror that also includes a performance from the legendary Sigourney Weaver. It's a perfect new midnight film to add to your list. Number 24 is Dead Lover and Honey Bunch. I'm at number 24 and I'm already cheating a little bit with two films here, Dead Lover and Honey Bunch, because both star real-life couple Grace Glowicki and Ben Petrie. In Dead Lover, which Glowicki also directs, we have a Midnight Madness style film about a grave digger searching for love, shot in a black box theater style. It is one of one. Honey Bunch, on the other hand, is a psychological thriller about a woman who wakes up from a coma with fragmented memories, and as her husband takes her to a trauma center, we discover some disturbing secrets. That film is co-directed by Madeleine Sims-Fuhr and Dusty Mancinelli. Number 23 is Poetic License. Poetic License comes from Apatow, not Judd, from Maud Apatow making her feature directorial debut with a coming-of-age dramedy. The story follows two friends whose rivalry kind of spirals over a charismatic older student who may or may not be Leslie Mann, who is auditing their poetry course. Nepotism aside, it'll be interesting to see how Maud handles herself behind the camera as she has grown up in this world, obviously with her parents Judd Apatow and Leslie Mann, but also as an actor in her own right. As mentioned, Leslie Mann appears here in a supporting role alongside Nico Parker, Andrew Barth Feldman, and the wonderful Cooper Hoffman. Number 22 is Seurat. This is the latest from Franco-Spanish filmmaker Oliver Lasche, known for, I would say, his contemplative, more spiritual storytelling in projects like Mimosas and Fire Will Come. Seurat is a spiritual road trip of sorts about a father who journeys across Morocco's Atlas Mountains with his son to search for his missing daughter after she vanishes at a rave. I had to look this up myself, but the title refers to the Seurat Bridge in Islamic tradition, which is essentially the path between heaven and hell. Expect some sparse dialogue, but very haunting imagery and deeper themes. Number 21 is My Father's Shadow. My Father's Shadow comes from British-Nigerian filmmaker Akinola Davies Jr. and is a very heartfelt story set in 1990s Nigeria. It follows two brothers who get to spend a day with their estranged father during the 1993 presidential election crisis, and we get to see this man through the boy's eyes. We get to see the father's flaws, but also his hopes and dreams through a little bit of an empathetic lens, a lens of understanding. While this is a feature directorial debut, Davies is definitely a filmmaker to watch. Number 20 is The Wrong Husband, or Weeksteringetera. Legendary Inuk filmmaker Zacharias Canuck, whose previous film, The Fast Runner, was actually named the greatest Canadian film of all time by TIFF in 2015, directs this historical drama set in the ancient Canadian Arctic. It follows two Inuk lovers kept apart by very strict customs who end up turning to supernatural forces in order to unite. You should expect a mix of pretty interesting culture, spirituality, myth, and very breathtaking northern landscapes. Number 19 is Left-Handed Girl. Left-Handed Girl comes from Taiwanese-American director Shi Ching-soo, the co-director of Take Out back in the day with Sean Baker, an early Sean Baker production, and she was also a producer on later Baker films like Tangerine and The Florida Project. This new film, though, is set to be a bittersweet family dramedy. It follows a single mother who returns to Taipei with her two daughters after years away, only to find some old secrets resurfacing. Expect a mix of some comedy, but also exploring some very real familial themes. Number 18 is Orwell 2 + 2 = 5. Orwell 2 + 2 = 5 comes from Haitian filmmaker Raoul Peck, who is, of course, an Oscar-nominated documentary filmmaker for his James Baldwin documentary, and this time he is taking on George Orwell and his life and ideas, particularly near the end of his life and with his novel 1984, to kind of hold up a cautionary mirror to our present day. Peck uses archival footage to suggest that, we might be closer to a dystopia right now than we'd like to believe. Number 17 is And Sons. And Sons comes from Argentinian director Pablo Trapero, who is a filmmaker known for his kind of visceral storytelling, I would say, in projects like El Clan, and is a former winner of Venice's Silver Lion for Best Director. The script here comes from the brilliant, the wonderful Canadian filmmaker Sarah Polley, which pretty much ensured it a spot on this list. The film itself follows a reclusive, aging novelist who suddenly summons his 3 estranged sons, claiming that he's on the verge of death. Of course, they all come together expecting some final goodbyes, but things aren't exactly as it seems. We have a studded cast here, led by Bill Nighy and Noah Chu. Number 16 is Good Fortune. Good Fortune comes from comedian Aziz Ansari, who's stepping behind the camera for his feature directorial debut. I was a big fan of his Emmy-winning series, Master of None, which I felt like brought an interesting mix of drama and comedy from this kind of millennial lens, so I'm curious to see what he can do with a feature. The cast is impressive, led by folks like Keanu Reeves, Seth Rogen, and Keke Palmer, and it follows an ordinary man who suddenly comes into an absurd amount of wealth overnight. We'll see if Ansari can carry his television success to the big screen. Number 15 is Orphan. Orphan comes from Hungarian director Laszlo Nemes, who won an Oscar for his Holocaust drama Son of Saul, which played back at TIFF 10 years ago. This film, Orphan, is set in Budapest in 1957 after the failed Hungarian Revolution and follows a young Jewish boy whose life is disrupted when a stranger arrives, claiming to be his father. This seems to be a recurring theme this year of its father-son or parent-child relationships, but this one definitely sounds intriguing. Nemes is a master at atmosphere and tension, so expect a poignant exploration of things like identity and loss. Number 14 is Mirror's Number 3. This film comes from German auteur Christian Petzold, who is behind films like Phoenix and A Fire, and he shifts into kind of uncanny fairy tale territory here. It begins with a car crash that propels a woman into a very haunting fable that kind of bends time and ultimately reflects this idea of intertwined destinies. The film played at the Cannes Directors Fortnight and has been described as an exploration of grief and fantasy, which actually sounds a little bit like Babak Anwari's Hollow Road from this year, which I really liked as well. But anyway, don't expect everything to be neatly explained here. It's definitely for audiences who like films that will challenge reality and make you think. Number 13 is Rental Family. Rental Family comes from director Hikari, who won the Berlin Audience Award for 37 Seconds in 2019. The film follows a lonely American actor in Tokyo who, in complete desperation, begins working for a company that provides actors who pretend to be members of people's families. This film stars Brendan Fraser, who, of course, is hoping to continue this kind of career renaissance, and it's based on a real phenomenon in Japan where we have these agencies who provide rental relatives for companionship or just for keeping up appearances. Hikari is a very sensitive storyteller, so I'm expecting a pretty nuanced look at loneliness and at family. Number 12 is Frankenstein. Frankenstein comes from legendary filmmaker Guillermo del Toro, who probably doesn't need much of an introduction. Frankenstein, understandably so, has been kind of a lifelong passion project for Guillermo del Toro, who is basically the monster guy. The cast here includes folks like Oscar Isaac, Christoph Waltz, Mia Goth, and Jacob Elordi in one of the most stacked casts here at TIFF. And given Del Toro's love and ability for putting interesting creatures on screen and being willing to kind of experiment from a visual perspective, this adaptation should be very, very visually stunning at the very least. Number 11 is The Christophers. The Christophers comes from another legendary director, Steven Soderbergh, and it is written by Ed Solomon. It's a dark comedy about estranged children of a once famous artist, again, very common theme here, who basically hire a forger to complete their father's unfinished works. Knowing Soderbergh, who is always doing interesting things, just look at Presents from last year, we can probably expect a bit of a blend of genre, satire, and probably some commentary on art as well. Another studded cast here with folks like Sir Ian McKellen, Michaela Cole, and James Corden. Number 10 is Sound of Falling. Sound of Falling comes from German filmmaker Masha Shalinsky and spans 4 generations of women who are all tied to this remote farm. It traces basically a century of their family history, showing love and loss and the burdens that are ultimately passed on from mother to daughter. What's interesting is that rather than following a more traditional narrative structure, the film unfolds more as a mosaic of interconnected realities. Definitely a film to watch if you want to see something very human on screen. Number 9 is The Smashing Machine. The Smashing Machine is probably one of the more recognized films on this list, with already a lot of promotion behind it. Rightfully so. It comes from director Benny Safdie, one half of the Safdie brothers, who's teaming up here with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, although, of course, The Rock is dropped here in his more serious acting work, and it probably is the role of his career. It's an intense biopic about real-life MMA legend Mark Kerr, whose very brutal early days in this mixed martial arts earned him the nickname The Smashing Machine. We know how good Safdie is at this point. He's brilliant at building anxiety and tension, and given the opportunity for Dwayne Johnson to really have a career-defining performance as a serious actor here, it could be pretty cool. Number 8 is Nouvelle Vague and Blue Moon. Okay, I'm cheating here again at number 8. We have 2 films from one of my all-time favorite filmmakers, Richard Linklater. Nouvelle Vague has received a little bit more attention so far. It's basically an ode to the French New Wave following the creation of Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless. It's black and white in French. It's, at least on the surface, a little bit of a departure for Linklater, although it makes sense given his kind of reverence for French New Wave cinema. Blue Moon is different. It's an intimate, real-time drama set on the opening night of the musical Oklahoma, with a cast including one of my favorite actors, Ethan Hawke, and Margaret Qualley. Again, Linklater is such an interesting filmmaker, also a super nice guy, so both of these films are going to be worth a watch. Number 7 is If I Had Legs, I Would Kick You. If I Had Legs, I Would Kick You, love that title, marks the return of director Mary Bronstein 17 years after her film debut. This film premiered at Sundance. Unfortunately, I missed it there, but it stars Rose Byrne in what is probably the performance of her career. She plays Linda, a stressed mother on Long Island whose life spirals into chaos. Her daughter has a serious illness, her husband is away for months at a time, and even their apartment is falling apart. The film mixes realism and surrealism with some bleak humor and tragedy. Some more strong cast members here. We have Conan O'Brien, the legendary late night host, and A$AP Rocky. Number 6 is The Secret Agent. The Secret Agent comes from Brazilian director Kleber Mendonça Filho, and this film, The Secret Agent, won him Best Director at Cannes this year. Not a terrible start. It's set in the 1970s during Brazil's military dictatorship, and the film follows Wagner Moura, who also won Best Actor at Cannes for this role, leading a sort of double life as an informant for the regime. This obviously dangerous position traps him in a world of paranoia, but also moral conflict. We have themes of authoritarianism, surveillance, and personal responsibility, which make this story definitely relevant today, despite its historical setting. Number 5 is Hamnet. Hamnet comes from director Chloé Zhao and is a period drama kind of reimagining the untold story behind one of Shakespeare's greatest tragedies. Adapted from a novel, it shifts focus from Shakespeare to his family, particularly his wife Agnes and their 11-year-old son Hamnet, who died in 1596. We have Jessie Buckley as Agnes, and apparently one of my favorite actors in the last several years, Paul Mescal, who starred in two of my favorite films from the past several years, All of Us Strangers and Aftersun. Buckley, as mentioned, stars as Agnes, William Shakespeare's wife, and Mescal is Shakespeare himself. The cast also features the wonderful Emily Watson and Joe Alwyn. Expect a beautiful, but because it's Shakespeare, tragic story steeped in loss and grounded in great performances. Number 4 is Franz. Franz is from Polish filmmaker Agnieszka Holland, who is known most for kind of politically charged dramas. Here she turns to one of literature's most enigmatic figures and one of my personal favorites, Franz Kafka. This isn't a straightforward biopic, but more of an imaginative, life-spanning, kind of kaleidoscopic portrait that brings together fact and fiction in what you would say is a hybrid docudrama. It's very cool stuff. It is set between Prague and Berlin and tracks Kafka's inner world and creative process through some of his most defining relationships and stages episodes that are basically designed to mirror the anxieties in his work. In a very appropriate Kafka-esque fashion, there is a blend of the surreal and the real. Basically, we have existential dread, human fragility, and some haunting surrealism in a unique form. What more could you ask for? Number 3 is Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. Nirvana the band, the show, the movie is the long-awaited feature continuation of the cult series from Matt Johnson and Jay McCarroll. Johnson has been trying to get this project off the ground for years, but it wasn't until the success of Blackberry that he was finally able to get the money. And it's a good thing that he did, because kind of despite the odds, it has become one of the most beloved crowd pleasers of the year for the folks that were able to catch it at South by Southwest, at least. And as fans would expect, Johnson and McCarroll lean into some meta storytelling, absurd comedy, and fourth wall breaking, all while delivering, a sincere look at friendship and chasing your dreams. Number 2 is sentimental value. Sentimental Value comes from Norwegian director Joachim Trier and explores the very messy intersections of art and family. Trier, who's known for The Worst Person in the World, securing an Oscar nomination there, reunites with the star of that film, Renate Reinsve, for a story about two sisters. Again, common theme, reconnecting with their estranged father, a once famous filmmaker who is setting up for a comeback. The film won the Grand Prix at Cannes and is definitely a frontrunner for Best International Feature at next year's Oscars, and honestly, it's probably on pace to surpass The Worst Person in the World. The number one film to watch at TIFF 2025 is It Was Just an Accident. Look, It Was Just an Accident is more than just a film. It comes from Iranian master filmmaker Jafar Panahi, who is a filmmaker who spent decades working under persecution and arrest and a government ban on him making films. And despite these restrictions, he is someone who has continuously fought for what is right and fought against injustice. He has been known for smuggling his films out of the country in very interesting ways, and he's back again here with It Was Just an Accident. The film starts with a man driving at night with his wife and daughter when he hits a dog, badly damaging his car's engine. As a result, he pulls into a garage where he encounters a former political prisoner. From that point, the story turns dark, and this prisoner essentially seeks revenge against who he believes was his captor. Ultimately, Panahi is asking a lot of us. He wants us to consider the debate between mercy and revenge, and yet again shines a light on oppression and torture and living in a state of perpetual distrust. It Was Just an Accident has already taken home the Palme d'Or at Cannes this year, and you absolutely do not want to miss it at TIFF 2025.